Welcome back to the Think Like a Pancreas podcast. This episode, we are going to go into chapter 4 of within the book, Think Like a Pancreas, titled The Three Keys. So I am Katlyn, nurse practitioner, diabetes care and education specialist here at IDS. And with me, I have the one and only Gary Scheiner. Gary, care to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Caitlin. Well, I wrote this book. The title is probably what it's best known for. I've heard people tell me I don't even need contents. The title alone would sell the book. It's what it's all about when we have diabetes. I've lived with type 1 for 41 years now, and I've been a diabetes clinician, diabetologist for 32 years. Proud of the work we do at Integrated Diabetes Services and helping people from all walks of life and all over the world to live more successfully with their diabetes. And success looks differently to different people, and we're very goal-oriented. Different people have different goals, and we try to help them work towards that.
It's well said.
Welcome to Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast, where our goal is to keep you informed, inspired, and a little entertained on all things diabetes. The information contained in this program is based on the experience and opinions of the Integrated Diabetes Services clinical team. Please discuss any changes to your treatment plan with your personal healthcare provider before implementing.
What are these three keys? Because ultimately, the goal of diabetes management is to be able to live and enjoy life to the fullest while avoiding or limiting burnout and diabetes distress. That is well described in literature, and a lot of people experience those things. So with regards to these three keys, what are the keys?
Well, I'm glad you said that, Caitlin, about why we manage diabetes, because there's too many people out there, including a lot of healthcare providers, who think it's all about numbers on a lab report or on a printout, and it is not. That's a means to an end. Ultimately, it's about, like you said, it's living a full, healthy, successful life, and diabetes management plays a role in that. But if what you're doing to manage your diabetes is getting in the way of living that full, healthy, successful life, something's wrong. A person's quality of life comes first before anything else. But now to answer your actual question, so the three keys, and I use an analogy of a chain link, because if you have a chain with links on it, that chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And if you have some strong links and some weak links, that chain is going to fall apart. And I find that to manage diabetes successfully, there's three things that everyone needs. First, we need certain tools for managing the diabetes, starting with insulin, and then, monitoring devices, insulin delivery devices, as well as a number of other things we can get into. So you have to have tools for successfully managing. The second thing you need are skills. It's just like if you give someone a computer and don't teach them how to use it, it's just a place to put Post-it notes and for playing solitaire. Thinking of my parents, they got them a computer and that's what they did. But you have to have skills to use the tools that you're given. Things like learning how to self-adjust your insulin, how to carb count, how to manage exercise, those kind of skill sets. So if you have the right tools and the skills to use them, you're 2/3 of the way there. The third link in the chain, or the third key, is the right attitude. I think you and I both see a lot of patients with diabetes who have got skills. They've got the tools in place, but they're still not managing well because their attitude sucks. They don't care enough. It's not a priority to them, or, maybe there are anxieties in place, but the proper mindset is not there.
Right.
Having the right mindset is necessary to accomplish anything.
The patient that comes to mind when you say that, and they're burned into my memory, it was when I was working in a hospital setting. And I was consulting with a patient who had already had an amputation of their lower leg, and they were preparing for the second one because of unmanaged, long-term, uncontrolled diabetes. And I was trying to teach him stuff, and he was eating Cheetos, like crunching as hard as he could, and is like blowing me off. And eventually I just left the room. But yeah, his attitude was terrible. You didn't care. And to your point from previous episodes, knowing the consequences doesn't equal motivation for a lot of people. So attitude comes from within, but I think you also have to have the right tools and support system to get you there.
Yeah, because that is unfortunate. There are also a lot of people out there whose attitude is excellent and they want to do well and they're willing to put the work in, but they don't have access to the tools they need, or they haven't received the training and education to develop their skill set. And that's probably sadder than people who have all the right tools and just don't have the attitude. And you think of teenagers often as the people with the attitude issue, but that's not always the case. I know a lot of teenagers who are into it. They want to manage well. Often I find adults are more of a challenge, especially younger adults. They have other priorities, other things going on in their lives. You know what? It's okay. We try to find a way to blend the diabetes into that. It shouldn't become the beginning and end of everything they do. Diabetes is just something that enables you to do the things you want to do. It shouldn't be interfering so much. But
Yes.
let's get into the tools first. The insulin as a starting point. And it's not just insulin. You need the right kinds of insulin. Different insulins are beneficial for different situations. For people on injections, you need a long-acting basal insulin, preferably one that doesn't have significant peaks and valleys to it like NPH does. And you need mealtime bolus insulins that do the job. And there are different types of bolus insulin that work well in different situations. Regular insulin is an old form of insulin, but it still works pretty well with the usual American diet that has a lot of fat in it. Slow digesting meals respond well with regular insulin. So the regular peaks at the time the food is peaking. We have rapid acting insulins like Humalog, Novolog, NovoRapid. Those are better than regular for preventing big spikes after meals. But even better, we have the new ultra-rapid insulins, Lumjev and Fias, that work a little bit faster. The best one for preventing spikes after meals is inhaled insulin, Afrezza. And that can be used at meal times as well as for correcting high blood sugars. People on pumps were only using liquid forms of rapid insulin. So either rapid or ultra-rapid insulins in the pumps. But the pump is, it's one way of delivering insulin. Not everybody chooses to use a pump for a variety of reasons. And that's okay. We have syringes for administering insulin and we have pens. And the pens have come along. Some pens are fairly sophisticated now. They sync with a smartphone app that can calculate doses for the user, can keep records. Some of them the pens are Bluetooth enabled, so the app will track when insulin was taken and how much. So the app can calculate insulin on board. They do some pretty neat things. Hybrid between a pump and a pen. They just sit on the skin. You can deliver insulin by squeezing buttons on it in fixed increments, or they can deliver a flat rate, similar to a basal rate. Pumps have a lot of advantages, though, over injection therapy. So most people now are gravitating towards them, especially now that the pumps can kind of independently adjust insulin delivery if glucose is rising or falling. So the user doesn't have all that burden on them. The pump itself and the algorithm built in can make decisions as well. Software like that is very useful. But for anybody on diabetes, there's software that can help with tracking of glucose information, provides statistics on an ongoing basis, can compare how different doses of insulin work, can track meals and things like that. We also have medications other than insulin that are tools people can be using. Metformin is an oral medication that is used by a lot of type 1s who are somewhat insulin resistant. During adolescence, it can be used. People who are overweight or just genetically have insulin resistance. Metformin can do a nice job of offsetting some of the insulin resistance that's created. And then now we also have the GLP-1 medications and the GLP-1 GIP combination meds. They're not yet FDA approved for use in type 1, but they can be prescribed off-label. They're generally very safe and very effective for a number of things, including weight loss, managing food intake, keeping appetite in check. And the research keeps finding other health benefits from these meds involving the cardiovascular system, the kidneys, even the brain. So I think eventually we're going to see approval for those in type 1s and other oral meds called SGLT2 inhibitors. These are type 2 meds that help the kidneys secrete glucose into the urine, which helps lower blood sugar and induces a little bit of weight loss. It's another one that's not approved for type 1, but can be prescribed off label. So we do have medications other than insulin that can be a tool. Obviously, we need a glucose monitoring system when we're taking insulin. These days, continuous glucose monitors are widely used. Why somebody would not use one is a bit of a mystery. Even if they have skin issues from the adhesives, there are ways around that. Even if the accuracy is not always right, it's still far better than just relying on occasional finger sticks. If somebody's only doing finger sticks, say 4 times a day, they're going 6 hours between moments when they know what their blood sugar is. 6 hours not knowing where they are, what direction they're headed. That's a long time to go. So CGM is really a valuable tool to be using. And a supportive healthcare team, I consider part of the tool chest as well.
Absolutely.
No one manages or lives with this alone. Having a supportive team around you, not just clinicians, but family members as well who are supportive. So I consider those the major elements, the major tools that every person with diabetes should have in their tool chest. Did I miss anything you can think of?
No, I agree. I think in addition to smart pens using apps, there's other independent apps that can be so helpful with regards to nutrition and tracking. Support could be, like you said, a person, whether it's a healthcare provider or a friend, a family member, someone to help motivate and share information with can be helpful. It could be a book, like Think Like a Pancreas, or a podcast.
Yeah, I never thought of my book as a tool, but I guess it is. I've been called
It
a
would
tool,
be to
so
me.
you could call my book a tool also.
Your book it's very relatable, and the way that it's written it's easy to get through. It sounds like a story, but you're learning along the way. I actually made my husband read it, and my first copy, I'd taken notes, so he got to see my examples along with yours.
He's probably going to punch me the next time I see him.
Yeah,
The guy who wrote that book I had to read, smack. All right, so as far as skills go, there's a handful of skills that I think are pretty important for everybody who uses insulin to have. One is you got to know how to monitor your glucose, whether that's how to finger stick and check or how to maintain your CGM, how to use your CGM product. I think it's also important for everybody to do some form of data collection besides the glucose. I'm not saying you have to keep detailed logs your entire life, but it helps for analysis purposes to know when you're exercising, what you're doing, to know, when you're eating unusual foods, when stress is taking place. These kind of events allow us to look at the data with context. We understand why things are happening and not just that they're happening. Because if we want to solve problems, we got to know what's causing the problems in the first place. Being able to analyze one's own data by looking at that information critically is very valuable. We try to teach all of our clients here how to analyze their own data. And that's part of our job, is to help people be more independent and make rational, intelligent decisions based on what they see. And understanding there's a difference between an event and a pattern. A lot of people will reach out. My glucose went low today. We got to change everything. No, well, let's see if it happens again. Usually does not happen again, so we're okay. And then we try to go back and see, well, what caused that one event? Patterns are a different story. When you see recurrent things happening, then adjustments to the program may be in order. From a nutrition standpoint, carb counting is a valuable tool, and I think it's a beneficial tool. I think I mentioned back when we talked about chapter 1 of my book, early on, everybody with diabetes was given an exchange list and a very restrictive, rigid diet to follow. Carb counting opens up the world to pretty much anything we choose to eat. I'm not suggesting people eat Cheetos and pizza all the time, but we deserve to enjoy things like that sometimes. And being able to carb count and match insulin to what we're eating, it's a helpful, valuable skill to have. And being able to adjust the insulin is critical also. not just for food, but also adjustments for physical activity, for illness, for hormone changes, growth, a lot of different situations where adjusting insulin will help us stay in range as much as possible.
I would say not only education, but it's the application of what you're learning. That's what falls into our skills category. Absolutely.
And I try to cover each of those skill sets to a certain extent in the book in chapter 4. So I'm not just saying, yeah, you got to know how to count carbs. I got some instruction in there. I'm not just saying, yeah, you got to know how to adjust insulin. I give some specific guidance on how to do that. And that's the difference between us and you go to your doctor, they say, you're having too many lows, fix it. Or your A1C is up, you got to do better. We're about, okay, here's what we're observing. Do you want to fix it? Here are some solutions. Now let's develop some strategies for getting you there.
Right. And individualizing it to that person and their scenarios. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think back to carb counting, it opens up the world of possibilities because it gives you the freedom of choice, right? I know I can eat cake on my birthday. I also know how to cover the carbohydrates and the effects the best I can, but is it worth it? And I get to choose.
Right. I mean, there are days I'll get a couple slices of pizza for lunch. If I have a little extra time and I'm hungry, I can estimate the carbs and dose accordingly. Today, my schedule is very tight. I'm lucky if I get to eat a salad and an apple. Obviously, I'm going to take less insulin than I would for the pizza. But just being able to estimate those carbs and match the dose of insulin to it, it's very, very important to be able to do.
I didn't know carrots had carbohydrates because they back on the exchange list, the vegetable, until I had a low and I had that craving. Like I just wanted to eat. Like, you know what? I'm going to eat this free food, an entire bag of little carrots. And then my blood sugar was in the 200s. So then I looked at the label and I'm like, oh, that's a lot of carbs I just put in my body.
Katlyn, you might be the first person I ever met who had a low and craved vegetables. You're in a class by yourself.
I wanted to eat something and I didn't want to derail the whole kit and caboodle, yet I did it anyway on carrots.
All right. So yeah, you got to carry little mini bags of 10 grams of carb in carrot form everywhere you go.
Right.
So the attitude part, I break into a few like mini categories. One is determination. It takes work. Managing diabetes does take work. It takes effort. It takes some sacrifice. It should never become overwhelming. It should never dominate one's life. But it takes a certain amount of determination to do that. You have to accept you are going to have to work at it to manage it, but it's well worth it. Problem solving is another attitude element because even if you do all the right things don't always turn out the way we hoped. So being able to problem solve when those sort of things happen, when challenges are thrown your way, you got to be able to, I call it call an audible. It's a football term. But you got to be able to change your approach at the last minute for things.
Mine would be pivot.
Pivot. Okay. That's more of a ballet term maybe, or gymnastics.
Perhaps.
Yeah. All right. We'll call it pivot audible. How about that? It also takes persistence. Diabetes doesn't really have a memory. If you do everything great today and you're in range 95% of the time, tomorrow, if you don't do the things you're supposed to, it's going to be in range 5% of the time. It doesn't say, Katlyn was good the last week. We'll give her a break today. It doesn't work that way. You got to be persistent. And that's not to say you can't take a vacation from your diabetes once in a while. We all need to. But just know it takes persistence day after day to stay on top of things if you want to manage well. And it does take some discipline. We can't just rely on technology to take care of things for us. Even with the ability to eat what we choose and do what we choose, we still have to have some discipline when it comes to our food intake, particularly when it comes to how frequently we eat. I always tell my patients, grazing feels good, but it don't work. You'll never manage your glucose if you're grazing. You got to put some space between the feedings, and it takes discipline to do something like that. We know that exercise is very valuable, keeping someone's insulin sensitivity high, for lowering glucose, etc., and for preventing long-term health problems. It takes discipline to stick to that workout plan because we all have days we just don't feel like doing it, but discipline kicks in. And one last thing I think is an important attitude element is acceptance. Now, I'm not a religious person. Okay? There's certain holiday traditions I enjoy. Being Jewish, we celebrate Passover. We have a lot of fun then. High holidays, I do all that. Some Shabbats we do. I'm not really religious, but the serenity prayer is something I can truly appreciate. And Serenity Prayer, I'll paraphrase, is grant me the power to change what I can, to accept what I can't, and have the wisdom to know the difference. Because there's some things that we do not have control over. And in a lot of respects, glucose levels are not something we have direct control over. But we can put ourselves in the right position to have quality glucose levels. And if we do that, then more often than not, we will succeed. Complications, that's another thing. We do not have direct control over that. But we can put ourselves in an excellent position to avoid long-term complications. So I think understanding what you can and can't change, and focus on the things that are within your domain and within your control. That's an important part of the attitude.
Yes, I think it's reframing. That's the attitude piece as well. Not, oh my gosh, this happened to me, but what can I learn from this event? We know that there's over 40 different variables that are influencing blood sugars every day, all the time. And a lot of times they have opposite effects. So you're not going to be able to control it. You can't. But having those tools, the skills, the attitude can certainly improve our time and range while still maintaining quality of life so that we can do the things that we want to do.
I use a baseball player as an analogy. If you take batting practice and get coached and work on your craft, you're going to get a hit maybe 1 out of 3 at bats. That's success. So, it's not totally within your control as a baseball player to get a hit. But if you do the right things, you'll be an all-star. So that's what it's about.
So Gary, tell me, what's your favorite tool right now?
I found this new treatment for hypoglycemia that I really like. And what we use to treat our lows is a tool. It's part of our toolbox for living with diabetes. And I found these square tablets at a trade show recently that are made of dextrose, and they actually taste good. I mean, back when I was diagnosed, BD had these tablets in a blister pack, and they were 5 grams each. They were the size of horse pills, but they tasted good. You didn't mind having these when your blood sugar was low. Most of the glucose hypo treatments now don't taste so good. And I found these tablets, and they're called Dextro Energy, and I kind of like them. So that's my favorite tool.
You sent it in the mail, and it traveled decently. It was a little powdery when I opened it.
You didn't like it, did you?
Actually, I eat almost anything. I'm a pretty...
You eat carrots when you're low, so this should...
I know, right? I told you, I'm one of 8 children growing up, so I didn't have a lot of ability to be greedy about what I was going to have. You took it or you didn't. But to me, they tasted like, those fun dips with the powder and the different colors, the little white candy piece that you scoop the powder from. That's what it reminded me of. I did get my son and my daughter to try a nibble of a piece. They thought I was giving them rat poison. I don't think they would have bought it, but...
Oh, that's quite an endorsement.
I know. No, I thought that they were okay. I'd eat them, but my favorite right now is fruit snacks. Just because they're, even when they get melty from being in the car, that just makes them a big blob. It's easier to not drop one.
All right.
So I eat all kinds of things. Well, Gary, do you have any other closing remarks on these 3 keys? Something maybe that you wish you knew about sooner?
Well, I wish growing up all the decades I lived with type 1, I wish I had a clinician to work with who got me, who really understood my needs, where I was coming from, and could work with me at that is something I wish I had had all along. Not only for managing my diabetes better, but just feeling better about it. Just making diabetes more livable.
Yes.
That's something that, I wish I had had all along. I work with a whole team now here at Integrated Diabetes that I can say that about. And it's wonderful being surrounded by a team like this.
That's perfect. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this podcast episode and see you in the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. On behalf of Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast, I'm Gary Scheiner, wishing you a fantastic week ahead. And don't forget to think like a pancreas.